Alright, hello, and it's time for the second character of Total League here. I have been working on the POE for this character for the past, I'd say, 2 weeks, very intensely. I've been POBing a lot, and finally have this at a state where I'm pretty happy with it, and I do have it all together in game, so I figured I'd make a video going over what I've done. I'm going to preface this video by saying that this character was not done with any budget in mind. Basically, I wanted to just have a currency sync, and I also wanted to try out 2 cool interactions with this character, and that was the only thing that really spurred me on as I was building it, so I have no idea how this works on a budget. I don't know any of that stuff. This is just basically taking 2 cool interactions for a build and then seeing how far I can push it. So that's just keep that in mind when you watch the rest of the video. I haven't. This is not meant to be like a full build guide or anything. This is just an overview of what I've done. So hopefully that'll still be entertaining for you, as I think the build is quite cool. Okay, so what is this character? This character, as you might have seen from the title, is a Slayer Spark character. Basically, it's a Slayer Spark sort of Aurastacker type character, which is, yeah, you don't usually see Slayers do Spark, but here we are, and I do promise there is method to my madness here, and there's a reason why I think Slayer is the best ascendancy for what I'm doing right here, in particular. Whether or not the thing I'm doing on its own is worth it is another question, but I do think it is pretty cool, and I'll go over what it is here in a second. So, as I said, there are 2 cool interactions I want to try out with this build. So the first one, and I'm in game here, menagerie, is to use Widowhail. So Widowhail is a relatively new unique. I believe it was introduced either last or the league before that. I think last league, right? So basically, it a bit over triples the bonuses from your quiver and does nothing else. So it's you can see here 250% increased bonuses gained from a quick quiver. Now this is functionally, if you want to know exactly how this works, just take every single stat on your quiver and multiply it by 3.5. That is what this does at max roll. So it's potentially very powerful if you have a really juiced quiver. And this is something that I have been working on. So this is something I crafted, and I did record the craft of this. I'll have a video of this up in probably after this video at some point, pretty soon. But yeah, so if you have a synth quiver like this with a lot of really good stats, every single line on this quiver is multiplied by 3.5. So what this results in a quiver like this, you're getting a ton of prod speed, like a metric shit tons. Basically, this quiver on its own gives you just straight up 66% increased prod speed, right? This gets multiplied by 3.5, which gives you a lot of prod speed. It also gives you a lot of crit multi, a lot of crit chance, and obviously life, and then the chaos res roll here is also really nice. So you're getting a lot of power out of this. Now, this is not, is this more output than I would get from doing like double nebulas or something? I don't know. But the nice part about this is you're scaling a ton of prod speed. So if you look at the in-game here at my prod speed modifier, this is plus 622%. So that is a times 7 multiplier on my prod speed from pretty much only this quiver and a few tattoos. Now this can go higher. My first iteration of this character had a times 8 multiplier. Basically the only thing that was different was I was running Anomalous Blood and Sand as an aura. I had to eventually drop that because I just needed the socket space. It's a very tight config, this build right now. It's very not a lot of movable pieces, unfortunately, but yeah. Also, I just found that pushing prod speed any more than this sort of doesn't really feel necessarily worth it from the sims I've been doing on the spark damage. I think times 7 is a nice little place to be. But if you want some sort of reference point, the highest prod speed I've seen on some of the trickster spark builds that are really invested in prod speed have been like times 5. So this on its own is like a lot higher than that, and it's very cool. Like you see that if I just start casting spark, you see that sort of what this looks like. Yeah, it's pretty good. Very good for mapping. Also huge coverage, and obviously if single target, prod speed does actually scale spark damage because each spark cast has a higher chance of overlapping the same enemy multiple times because the spark speed makes them freak out way more. So it's very cool. I mean, you can just you can fill up rooms real quick here. It's really cool. And obviously you're getting a ton of multi and a ton of crit chance and stuff like that. And also you're getting a lot of chaos res. So this is not a CI character or anything. It's hybrid based. So you do need chaos res. If you look at my chaos res, right? So I am capped, but if I remove the quiver, I'm basically at nothing. And the only other source of chaos res I have on the entire build, I believe, is the 17 from this boot implicit. So this on its own, just a tier 1 chaos res roll on the quiver, basically fully caps your chaos res, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's quite nice, and you're getting a ton of flat life as well from the life roll, and then some really nice flat damage from the Ashling mods as well. So a really cool combo here, and yeah, I really like this combo of items here. It's very cool. So that is the first interaction that I wanted to build this character around. Now the second one is a defensive mechanic, and that is using the Lethal Pride keystone, Strength of Blood. Now you've seen me use this keystone on the channel before, but this is a bit more highly invested into it. So first of all, the Strength of Blood keystone was changed this league. It used to do just generic damage reduction to all sources at a slightly lower rate, but now this is basically a nerf because now it only applies to fizz damage reduction. You're getting a little bit more out of it, but it does only apply to fizz damage reduction. So it is a nerf that way, but I believe what this freed them up to do is give you more sources of ways of scaling your maximum life recovery per second from Leech, which basically makes it so that you can get this number real high compared to previous leagues, which I believe they were scared of. I imagine it was kind of restricted design space there game-wise, because if they allowed you to scale it like this previous leagues, when this was just generic damage reduction, there would be nothing to stop you from getting 100% damage reduction and just becoming immortal with this, which I believe there actually have been cases of this happening before. That's obviously something they want to avoid. So while it is a nerf to the Strength of Blood Keystone, I believe it comes with an upside as well, so it's kind of cool. So I'm using this for Fizz damage reduction. Now this is important to note, this is a generic Fizz damage reduction, so this is the same as you're getting from endurance charges, basically meaning that it is also scaling the amount of damage you take from bleeds and corrupted bloods and stuff like that. So Fizz dots also get affected by this. So basically, since I'm not gonna, let's just say that, right? I'm basically getting enough strength of blood here to have permanent 90% Fizz DR at all times as long as I'm leeching. So because of this, bleeds or corrupted blood, anything like that, Fizz dots don't do anything to me. So basically, you don't need any sort of bleed immunity on this character. It's totally fine as long as you're leeching. You're not taking any damage from that stuff. I do have CB immunity on this jewel because I had this jewel already, but don't need it. I'm probably gonna switch that out at some point and sell this one off. So how am I scaling strength of blood? Well, the main part is you are using the new tattoos. So there's a new 7 adjacent tattoo here, Kitala Mitanya, that gives you 80% increased maximum total life recovery per second from Leech. I'm using this here, and I'm doubling it with the Widowhail jewel, which doubles the tattoos. So this gives 160% increased maximum total recovery per second from Leech from this node alone. And then that together with Volpact, which also doubles it, and then together with this node right here, which gives you 20% increased, makes it so that alongside a couple of endurance charges, which I'm also running, and again, endurance charges are additive with the stat you're getting from Strength of Blood, because it's the same as Fizz damage reduction. With all these, it gives me a permanent, basically, as long as I'm leeching, permanent 90% Fizz DR from all sources, which is very cool. It's very physically tanky, this build, and it has been very, very fun to try out. You can basically tank a lot of Shaper, Uber Shaper slams, which is pretty fun. So, this is the reason why I'm going Slayer. So, obviously, Slayer gives you Overleech, which obviously you kind of need in order to make use of Strength of Blood. However, obviously, you can get Overleech kind of on any character now, because all you need to do to get Overleech is you run a Petrified Blood, and then you reserve less than half of your maximum life, and that gives you functionally Overleech because you're never reaching the life cap with your Leech instances. So that theoretically I could do that and then just not have a Slayer and have Overleech anyway. However, the part that I think is really nice about Slayer in particular is that it has access to a very rare stat, and this is 100% increased maximum recovery per life leech. Now, this requires going into leech mechanics a little bit in POE, and now leech is, I would say, the term I would use to describe leech for in POE is overly complicated. There's a lot going on, and I'm going to link in the top right here a video from Sergeant Miner for a full leech deep dive if you're interested. I really like Sergeant Miner's videos, by the way. They're really good. If you're interested in POE mechanics, I would highly recommend his channel. This video goes into everything about leech and how it works, and if you're interested in going to that, but I'm going to give you a crash course here. So, how does Leech work? Well, every hit you do that has a Leech, it gives you a Leech instance. Now, that Leech instance has a cap of recovery of 2% of life per second. So that's the rate at which it can recover. And then it also has another cap for how much a single Leech instance can recover, which I believe is 10% default. So on default, every Leech instance has a 5-second duration, right? Because 2% recovery per second, and then the cap of 10%. So it's going to recover over 5 seconds. So this is one singular Leech instance, right? So you're getting one per hit, and obviously you're hitting a lot with, especially like a Spark build like this. So you have a lot of these Leech instances taking. Now they all take individually, and they all have their individual durations and whatever. So, but they all amass into one total number because there's a cap, and this is the cap you're actually scaling with this stat. So maximum total life recovery per second from Leech. This stat scales the cap of all your Leech instances together. So all Leech's instances together have a cap of how much life they can recover from Leech. And this is the cap you want to scale in order to scale how much reduction you're getting from Strength of Blood. So very fiddly. Basically just, this stat scales the Strength of Blood and scales how much of, basically just how much Leech you're getting overall. Now the Max Brutal Fervor node, this 100% increased maximum recovery per Leech, this scales the total cap per Leech instance, so you know that 10%. With this node, it becomes 20%, but the actual recovery rates of each Leech instance is the same still. That is still 2%. So basically what this does functionally is it doubles the duration of each Leech instance. So instead of lasting for 5 seconds, each Leech instance with this node lasts for 10 seconds. So basically, it gives you longer leeches, which is very nice for the way Strength of Blood works, because obviously you want this up as much as possible, and if it ever drops off, it's kind of it feels kind of bad. So having this node on the Brute Fervor is actually really cool, because it gives you longer leeches and more uptime on Strength of Blood. So yeah, it's Leech is, yes, overly complicated. There's a lot going on there, but especially with like how the wording is, like this being different from this, and yeah, it's very finicky, it's very particular. But yeah, basically that's why I'm going Slayer. That is the main reason why I'm going Slayer. The other reasons are the endurance charges you're getting from Master Reformer are actually really useful, because I'm using them in combination with Strength of Blood. So my Strength of Blood currently takes me to like, it's like 80 something, I think, PVSDR, and then the endurance charges I have scale it further than that, and then because I have 5 endurance charges with Masterful Form, and then I'm also using Immortal Call as the guard skill, which then used up those 5 endurance charges to give a really nice damage reduction buff, which it has about 60% uptime, I believe, right now with the build, maybe a bit more than that, which is really powerful, because you can see it's 35% less of both elemental and fizz damage taken, which is very cool. And you also take a bunch less fizz damage per endurance charge, and we are doing full 5 endurance charges permanently, so Immortal Call is actually really powerful on this build. So I think this defensive setup is very cool. Is it worth it over some other method of, Fizz DR and damage mitigation? I don't know, but it is very cool, and it is something I wanted to try with this, because I mean, this tattoo combo just sounded so ridiculous. So yeah, it's very cool. I think it's very fun. So yeah, I'm doing that. For elemental mitigation, it's basically just Mageblood. Mageblood at 90 auras, so you can see that we are at 90 auras. This is basically where the Aurastacker, my Aurastacker tendencies come back into play. As you can see that we are doing voices and we are doing intersecting clusters. However, it's only 1, and then I'm using a large cluster here. So it's not as absurd as some of the other builds, because the tree is very, considering the passive points you need to spend in order to get Strength of Blood going, it's very tight on passive points, so I don't have a lot of room to maneuver here, but this is just enough to get things going. So 90 auras, and then the elemental flasks for elemental mitigation, alongside a decently large hit pool and a lot of leech and stuff like that. It makes it so that you are quite tanky to elemental damage, especially when Immortal Call is up, which it is most of the time. So how are we getting around the Strength of Blood downside? So life recovery from non-instant leech is not applied. Well, it's pretty obvious. I have the instant leech. So doing the leech master here, 10% of leech is instant. This applies to all types of leech. So it applies to both life, ES, and mana leech, which is kind of nice. I don't have a source of mana leech right now, because obviously it's a spell build. Kind of tough to get that on spells. I don't know if it even exists on spells actually, but yeah, it is scaling, because I have both life and ES leech actually, which is quite nice. So yeah, that is the way I'm topping up my life. So obviously the normal recovery from life leech doesn't actually get applied, but I am still getting my instant leech, which makes the life recovery totally fine, because again, Spark is one of those skills, especially with all this power speed, where you're getting absurd amounts of hits per second. I believe the sims I've been doing have been showing like 30 to 40 hits per second or something with Spark. So the instant leech is kind of insane with Spark, as anyone who's played Spark sort of knows it's really, really powerful. So that is for life recovery. For ES recovery, I'm currently doing the flask suffix here with the Mageblood, so this gives you spell damage leech. You can get this on other sources as well. You can get this on Watcher's Eyes with the Wrath mod, and you can also, there's some notes up here that give you it. But yeah, so that is the source of ES leech, so that is how I'm regaining my ES, especially since this build uses Righteous Fire, which currently actually does degen me, but whenever there's a leech instance up, Righteous Fire is super fine. So yeah, basically that's my source of spell damage leech, and obviously these both get around the Volpack downside as well, which is you have no life regeneration. So you often don't see Righteous Fire builds run Volpact, but I believe this makes it work. Yeah, you can see, I mean, I can do a quick little blood aqueduct to show you sort of how this looks like, right? So this is make a new instance here. So you see that when I just have nothing on, it does actually degen, but you can see the second I start attacking enemies, you can see what happens there. So it like fully recovers, basically, and this leech keeps up for quite a while. You can also see on the defense here, you can see that my fizz damage reduction is at 90 all the time here. And yeah, it's pretty cool, this whole interaction. It's very it's just very nice, I think. It's a cool little concept, at least. Whether or not it's fully worth the investment, I don't know, again, but it's something I want to try out, and yeah, it's quite cool. As for other stuff, we are scaling damage. It's basically just a lot of, the other stuff is pretty standard Aurastacker stuff, but I am doing Heat Shiver, so it's Heat Shiver, Call of Brotherhoods for the freezes. I think freezes are very strong. You could do, there's a world in which you could do like Original Sin with this, and do like a really juiced rare helmet and rare ring. I don't know if it's actually better. I've tried POBing this multiple times, but I've never been able to fully scale the damage to get the same level of this. So for now, I'm just doing heat shiver, which I'm quite happy with doing. So that's quite good. And then other sources of things, I'm doing just like the generic, influenced boots here with the tailwind elusive onslaught boots, which is quite nice. And then we're using some spark gloves for the spark damage. So those are the sources. For the chest piece, I'm currently running an influence chest. I have a crafting video on this coming up as well. This was a fun one to craft. Basically, this gives you, this fully covers you on frenzy charge generation and on the endurance charge generation. As I mentioned before, we are using endurance charges quite heavily in order to get to truly cap off the both cap off the first damage reduction and to scale the immortal call. So getting a source of endurance charges is really nice, and this is a really good way of getting that. Those two are the big, and then obviously you get the 30% aura effect as well from the chest, which is very cool. At some point, maybe I'll throw some blocks at this and try and corrupt it and get some good implicit on it, but for now, I think this has been very solid. If you're curious about the endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently, now this is a build that usually runs Grace, so we do have a little bit of evasion, so sometimes occasionally that is not up. I actually have a link here with the Forbidden Right for this reason, so if you ever need the regeneration, you can just press the Forbidden Right button. This does a bit of damage to you, and that counts as being hit, and that starts regenerating your endurance charges. And again, this life gets fully regged super easily as long as you have any leech going. So this is what I'm using for this. I think it's a very sort of comfortable setup. Like you can just if you really want it up permanently, you can just whenever you press your Divine Blessing aura, you can also just throw a Forbidden Right in, and you get some endurance charges, going, and it's quite good. Otherwise, again, it's a Mageblood build, of course. Classic Mageblood user. Have to have my crutch, But yeah, Mageblood is the main way I'm getting mitigation right now. Unfortunately, Stirring Blood again doesn't scale every type of mitigation anymore, so this is, I think, the easiest way of doing that. For the flasks, I'm doing the triple LE flasks, mana cost, cast speed, move speed with a Quicksilver, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And then we're doing a Ball of Faith for the big damage, because this is a build running crit, so Ball of Faith is very nice for that. And then we're also doing an Ashes of the Stars for the amulet. As for the curses I'm running, and I am doing some curses because curses are very powerful, I'm doing Elite Week, and I'm doing Sniper's Mark for probably obvious reasons. These are both very powerful damage multipliers, and the way I'm casting them is I'm currently using Arcanist brand. It's not the most comfortable thing, but for single target, it's super fine. You just attach it to the boss, and they get cursed over and over again, and that's pretty good. There are other ways of actually doing this. What I was doing for a while is actually, which is an interesting mechanic, is I was doing manually casting Elite Weakness, and then I was using Mark on Hit with Sniper's Mark. Now, you might be saying, Mark on Hit that only works with attack skills, so Spark wouldn't trigger it, and yes, this is true. However, what you can do on spell builds in order to trigger Mark on Hit while using spell still is to use this one glove enchantment. So Commandment of Fury is actually a weapon attack, which is kind of interesting. Basically, if you haven't seen this before, it's the one that shoots out a bunch of projectiles out of you in like a cone fashion like this, so you have to shoot them out like that. So this actually counts as a weapon attack, which means that this in itself procs Mark on Hit. So if you have this, if you have Mark and you're using spells and you use Mark on Hit, and you have this one glove enchantment, actually it lets you use Mark on Hit even with spells, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, that's it. I'm getting double curse for my amulet right now. What I did for a while before I found that amulet was I was doing Impossible Escape for CI, which would give you Whisper's Doom, also would give you access to the aura cluster right here, which would be nice. Also potentially would give you access to this node out here, which is actually quite nice because it gives you a 12% skill effect duration, which is also a good node. So an Impossible Escape with CI, as always, is very good as well if you want to do that. So yeah, that's the gear. As for the passive tree, this is very, yeah, it looks like a bit of an abomination of a passive tree, but I believe this is for, I've put a lot of work into this POB, and this is like the tightest it's ever been, I think. I'm pretty happy with this so far. So yeah, doing but it's just a bunch of jewel salts, basically. It's all the pathing is here. But yeah, basically, there's a couple key points I needed to get on this tree. So I need to get this 1 point for the tattoos. I needed to go down here somewhat. Obviously, Slayer makes that quite easy because you're pathing through here anyway to get up here. So it's quite nice that way. And also this keystone we've changed, so I'm doing Leech Shade for this keystone because I am fully immune from pure developments. So Leech Shade is quite nice, just gives you dot mitigation. You can change this to like, if you want more damage, you could do like Iron Will, which is pretty good as well. But yeah. As for the other stuff I need to path to, again, I needed to take Wall Pact somehow. You could also potentially do, there's a world where you change this keystone to Wall Pact and you can maybe take it to someone else, but the thing is, pathing down here also gives you access to a long shot here, which is really powerful with the amount of prod speed we're getting. Not only does this give you prod speed to begin with, it also gives you this, far shot type effect where your projectiles scale damage the further they go. And obviously, considering we have so much prod speed, the projectiles, spark projectiles, I'm finding out, travel real far, real fast. So this is basically maxed out permanent, like almost all the time, I think. think. So it's a very powerful damage node because just getting 60% increased damage with hits is a lot of stuff for one node. Honestly, these nodes are really good on their own as well because they give you proj speed. Then you're getting the proj mastery, which gives you even more proj speed. So this is the real bit on the tree that I'm using, investing into proj speed. Everything else is just from the quiver and from the tattoos. I replaced most of my dex nodes with proj speed. There's some that I need to have reservation on, like this one, and I believe I have aura effect on a couple of as well, because I do need to get aura effect enough to where I can scale my resists to 90. I believe I have 260% increased aura effect right now, which gets together with some passive points here, gets my resistance to 90. So most of my tattoos for the dex nodes are proj speed, but some are not. Otherwise, we're doing voices here and just getting more introspection clusters. Again, they basically just like fix the attributes so that I can switch everything else out for tattoos. Again, introspections here. As for the large passive cluster, has two important nodes actually. So this gives you elemental damage leech as life. This is my only source of just generic leech for the life portion of my character. Obviously, I'm getting the spell leech from the flask, and I'm getting the life leech from the Duriel's Destin node. This is actually kind of a rare-ish node to get, because obviously pretty much any source of a leech on the tree is just for attack. So you can go down here and see attack damage and leech as life. You can't really very easily get spell leech on life, and this is one of the few nodes that do it. So part of the reason why you have to do a large cluster here, not just another voices, as nice as another voices would be. And I'm also getting a Storm Rider here, which gives you basically permanent power charges, which is very nice as well. I think this is a very nice little large passive to get, especially because if you do have some passives over, you can take the Snowstorm node, which is actually very large. It's like a 7% more damage node on its own or something. It's actually very powerful. I can't take it right now because the tree is very tight, but somehow you manage to free up some points, then yeah, you can do that. As for the other tattoos, I've replaced every single int node with skill duration. Skill duration obviously scales spark. We have quite good duration right now, so yeah, I'm using the passive cluster down here as well, which scales effect duration and gives you the mastery, which gives you, again, more skill effect duration. So proj speed and effect duration are ways of scaling spark that don't necessarily reflect in the damage number going up, but actually the realistic DPS of the character go up because spark is a very cool skill and scales with a bunch of different things. So yes, other things for the notable, I'm using this +1 level to all int skill gem tattoo, which gives you a lot of damage because spells scale really well with gem levels. And then I'm doing Natural Instinct here. This is one of the cool little texts for tattoos. It's probably, I think most people know about this by now, but seeing as these max res tattoos, the way these are worded is that they require no more than one adjacent passive skill allocated. So if you have no passive skill allocated, they actually are active. So that makes them really work well with our Natural Instinct. So this Natural Instinct gives me 4 max res, and then you know, a bunch of other round stuff. I get some res here, I get some crit here, some life, which is actually quite nice, and then this doesn't actually do anything, but yeah, it's quite good. So that helps me cap to 90 with the melting of the flesh. I do have to run this, so yeah, which gives you -4 to all max. So you need to get a bit above cap. Basically, you need to reach 94 all res in order to make this take you to 90. But this is an easy way of doing that, alongside 260% aura effect. Taking all the aura nodes, obviously, to scale auras, classic. And yeah, there's not too much else. Other jewels I'm using Rational Doctrine. It's a really good way of getting a bunch of crits. Basically, if you have int as your highest attribute, it starts creating Profane Ground when you crit. Profane Ground basically scales. You can see the description down there. It gives you 100% increased crit chance on enemies on them, and also lowers the resistances. So it's quite powerful to scale your damage. And also gives you access to the int nodes connecting to it, which gives you more effect duration, which is always nice. Other jewels, Watcher's Eye, which I believe is over here. I'm just using basically a generic damage one. There's some other stuff you can do. You probably always want, you don't necessarily need hatred, the base hatred crit one. You could change a flask suffix to be crit, and then that will probably be enough to crit cap you. But I'm basically doing this because it's just nice, and then a bunch of damage mods. The zealotry mods are really powerful if you can get those. The elephant one and the increased damage while on consecrated ground ones are really powerful. But yeah, those are good. Other options, you can do discipline regen. Yes, that's actually really good in order to help mitigate the righteous fire degen. You can see I'm taking this Energy Shield Mastery right here, which gives me 2% Energy Shield regeneration. This does not get applied by Vault Pact or anything, so this actually does. This is just straight up 2% regen, which is quite nice. And you can get another like 2.5%, I believe, from the Watcher's Eye mod. I was running this before, which makes it quite nice. It does not quite sustain RF while you're just AFK. You need a little bit more, but it is quite close. If you want to just purely sustain RF even while AFK, you could get the Veiled mod on the chest, which gives you like it's like 250 or something ES regen per second, just flat, whenever you're near a rare or unique enemy. So as long as you have that requirement checked, then that would be able to make you sustain RF for as long as you want. But generally, I think this setup's fine because, again, you're always going to be leeching, and that covers your RF degen really easily anyway. And then obviously we're doing Lethal Pride to get Strength of Blood. Lethal Pride is pretty good otherwise because it can give you some cool stuff. Generally, the stuff you want from this is like double damage is the big one that will scale your damage. So I get double damage from, I believe, this node gets double damage with a seed, and then this one does 2, and I believe I get 1 more out of this. Yeah, this one does 2. So a bit of double damage there. I also get endurance charge on kill here. Again, we are getting endurance charges from the chest piece, but I think it's kind of nice having a different source of it just for mapping to sort of occasionally instantly refill your endurance charges. Not a huge deal, but it is kind of nice just having it there. And again, Leaf Shade for this keystone here. Change this with the tattoo. A bunch of stuff you can change this to if you don't value the dot reduction. Again, Iron Will. You could even do, like, if you want to, you could do this, make this a low life build, and then just get a bunch of damage, reserve some of your life, or Petrified Blood or something. That would be quite good. I didn't feel like that was worth it because that is quite a big, makes you really susceptible to chaos damage in particular. So I didn't feel like that was super worth doing, but it is pretty cool. And then I am Forbidden Flame and Fleshing for the champion node, which gives you, I don't know if you can, is there anything seeing it right here? But it's basically the 30% aura effect node from the champion. So that is what I'm stealing with the Forbidden Flame and Flesh. So that is quite strong. Obviously 30% aura effect is very powerful for Aurastacking. This is not I actually have I don't have that many auras on this character, but I am scaling. Aura effect is still pretty good for the character still. So there's a nice little bit of damage. As with the auras I am running, so I'm running, I'm either running Grace or Malevolence. This sort of depends on what I'm doing for content. If I'm doing like Sanctum or something, I throw on Malevolence, because again, you don't really need the defense for Sanctum. And this gives you a bunch of, again, if you're not familiar with Spark, Malevolence, obviously the damage over time, more multiplier doesn't do anything, but it does give you a skill effect duration, and quite a bit of it, and this gets scaled by the aura effect. So it's actually quite a powerful aura for Spark, because it gives you just that much more duration, so that each Spark just lasts for quite a while. And also just like generic skill effect duration affects stuff like your Immortal Call as well, which is really nice, and it affects a bunch of other effects as well. So it's not the worst thing in the world, especially like if you toggle this on, you can see that the Divine Blessing aura, for example, is 30 seconds, which is like the default is what, 12 or something. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, usually it's just Grace. If you're for mapping, I would always do Grace. You don't actually need the duration, and Grace is a nice little bit of defensive layer. But for Sanctum stuff, that is a swap I'm doing. The other was Hatred, damage, and then Purity of Elements for the resists and the ailment immunity, which is quite nice. Also lets you run Leaf Shade. There's some other ways of getting ailment immunity. You could do Storm Shroud and a Flask Suffix, but I think Purity of Elements is probably the best one, because also you get the Divergent bonus of getting some LPN, which is quite nice. Not a ton of LPN, but any source of LPN is actually really pretty good. Otherwise, I'm doing Zealotry in a Divine Blessing setup. Generally, with the way these work, you want your strongest aura, like your strongest scaling aura, to be in your Divine Blessing, because the Divine Blessing gives you more aura effect. So yeah, that's why the Zealotry in here. Zealotry is the aura that by far scales the most damage out of all the auras I'm running, so which is usually the case with Aurastacker type characters. Otherwise, I'm doing like in the 6 thing here, the Divine Blessing setup has an enhance to it, which enhances the Zealotry alt qual, so you get more crit multi out of it. Also enhances my Righteous Fire, which I linked to this. So the Divergent Righteous Fire scales your spell damage, so it's actually quite, you get 83% increased spell damage from this right now, which is yeah, Righteous Fire basically when it's up, it doubles your damage, so it's quite nice being able to support it. And then I'm running Discipline, Wrath, and Haste for the additional damage and additional ES from the Discipline. So obviously this is it's a very tightly invested tree. Currently I'm doing double Awaken Enlighten. It's kind of unethical, I know, but yeah, this is sort of why I said that this maybe is not, you probably maybe shouldn't completely copy this character, because that is fucking expensive. But yeah, to be fair, you could tool this around to where you could fit this in without, if you could use a slight few more gem sockets and stuff, you don't need these Awaken gems. It's just like a way of making the build easier for me, and I did have the currency to buy them, so yeah. Again, this is not a build guide, so don't take it like that. For move skills, I'm running a phase round on my left click, which is quite nice. It has basically, with the amount of duration scaling I have, it gives basically, as long as you're not doing any skills, it's permanently up. So you always have the phase round bonuses, which is what, like a bunch of move speed and stuff. Yeah, 40% increased move speed, and also you get phasing. So yeah, it's very cool. And then obviously occasionally it's a bit annoying how it eats your frenzy charges, but seeing as we have this chest, you're getting so many frenzy charges anyway that it's totally fine. Then I also have a flame dash socketed in order to just like you occasionally do need an actual move skill as well, not only phase run, so nice having that. So using this combination of move skills is results in a very fast character, which I quite enjoy. So I think that is it for the character in game. Let's go take a quick look at the POB. So this here is the POB. You can see that the current hit damage, if you factor in cold, is about 50 million per spark, and then I've been assuming a 5 times hits per spark, which I think is quite fair from what I've seen from simulations. This is almost exactly accurate actually in a reasonable, obviously for like a size arena you're getting less than this, but for like a reasonable mapping experience or something like that, you are actually getting 5 hits reasonably with this amount of duration and prod speed, so it's quite nice. So it's about 250 mil if you factor in culling, which is pretty good, I think. Obviously these numbers aren't going to compare to the Aurastacking. I never expected it to. I never set out to make this some sort of better build than the Aurastacking. This is just a different thing. I just wanted to try these cool things out, and I do like playing spark builds in general, so getting one with really high prod speed and nice damage is nice on its own. So the defenses are quite good. The chaos max is quite low. I had ways of getting higher chaos hit. I didn't feel like it was actually that worth it after playing around with the character a bit. You have a lot of Leech. Leech sort of covers, like degens aren't really that big of a problem, and I am poison immune from the ringy corruption there, so I can't be poisoned. Caustic ground, you get some mitigation from the Pantheon here, and I think generally like the only thing that really hurts is like big chaos hits, which some bosses do have and stuff like that, but it's really quite rare unless you're rolling it on maps or something. So I think this is a fine amount of chaos max hit. I'm not super worried about it. It's been very comfortable to play with anyway with this setup. So there are ways of scaling this further. Again, you could do you could change out the chest. What you could do is you could either do like a low life build and then do like some Shav's equivalent or some other way of getting a low life and then have chaos damage not bypass energy shield, and that will give you a bunch of chaos mitigation. You could also do like a suppress cap, which would be nice. I was running suppression on this character before. It would require you taking these 2 nodes, taking Mage Bane, and then getting suppression rules on all your gear that could have it. So chest, boots, basically just chest and boots, I guess. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, but this tree is really tight, so I couldn't really fit it in. I think the tankiness is perfectly fine even without it, but especially if I eventually try and corrupt this and I manage to corrupt that gilded mod into spell suppression, that will give me like a free 35%-ish spell suppression, which would be really insane. And in that case, I could actually go for a spell suppression, but until then, I would say probably not gonna go for it. I don't think it's necessarily worth it. So yeah, tankiness through Fizzit's really good, and from the LE is pretty good as well. Now this is with, it's a bit cheaty, it's with Immortal Call on. If you check it off, it's like a bit more reasonable. This is a more normal character looking, right? But Immortal Call, again, this is spec to where this has a, I mean, if we just look at the uptime, it's like 60% or something. 55, and this is without malevolence, so with the malevolence it'd be higher. So it is up more than half the time, so it's pretty good. So I guess you could just average this out to be half, but yeah, it's pretty solid. It's not the most tanky character out there. It certainly can die, but it is quite tanky. Like, even these numbers are pretty good, right? So it's it's not too bad, really. Especially with Immortal Call stacking endurance charges, you get a lot of Fizzmate when this is up, and obviously if you're just playing properly, you can, I'm currently manually casting it because I'm really tight on gem sockets, so I am manually casting it, which I know some people don't like. You could do cast on damage taken, and actually cast on damage taken in Immortal Call in this set was actually quite good, because the character is definitely tanky enough to take any, non-massive slam hit. I mean, even most slams I could probably tank the first hit of or something, but yeah, and then the second hit would trigger the Immortal Call, or the second hit would have the Immortal Call up, and then you'd be basically super, super tanky. So again, this isn't a character made to be immortal or anything, but it is very comfortable to play, and while still having good damage and really high prod speed and stuff, so it's very cool, I think. But yes, it doesn't compare with the Aurastacking. The Aurastacking character is actually immortal to hit damage and stuff like that. This is not the goal with this character. The goal is this character to make a cool little sparker, which I think I have managed to do, and this is pretty cool concept, I think, executed relatively well, at least. It does work. So gems, I think I covered most of it. It's we're doing Trinity, because again, Heat Shiver gives you Trinity, Inspiration, Spell Echo, Auras, Grace. Again, you can drop Grace, you can see what that kind of does with your HP. Yeah, and then you can do Malevolence. You can see that then you get a more closer to 60% uptime on Immortal Call, which would be quite cool as well. But yeah, so that's kind of the character. I'm gonna keep pushing this, I think. I had a lot of fun crafting stuff with this and building this character. Is it the best version of Spark out there? I don't know, probably not, but it is a fun one, at least. I think the Widowhail concept, I think, is definitely worth trying out, and it's very fun, I think, for Spark characters in general, doing this combo. I think it is a cool little thing for sure, and it gives you a lot of stuff. Whether or not the Strength of Blood stuff is actually worth the investment, it is a big investment. 2 jewel sockets functionally, 7 passives here, these customers here. So it's a big investment, but I'm getting a lot of Vismid, like even, obviously even like this, it's quite a bit without any guard skill, and then with the guard skill, it just goes through the roof. So, it's, yeah, I mean, who knows, but I want to try it out, and it's quite fun, I think. And, yeah. Especially, like, not having to have a bleed immune or anything is really nice. Just bees don't touch you, and then lets you free up a bunch of pantheons and stuff. So, yeah, I think it's quite cool in that way. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll have some more videos coming up here covering how I crafted the chest and the quiver. Those are my current projects I'm working on, video-wise, so those should be fun. And yeah, after that, you can come check out I'm going to be streaming this character. I've been streaming every other day-ish at this point, streaming like, 6-7 hours. You can check out the Twitch channel for that. There's a link in the description. Probably just going to keep doing some sanctums with this character until I find a mirror, which apparently is never going to happen or something. I don't know. No mirrors yet, even after multiple hundreds of sanctums, but at some point, surely, at some point. Also going to be progressively throwing locks at all these mirror tier items and trying to double crop them. If I could hit +4 gems on these gloves, that would be so insane. So I'm going to probably focus on trying to do that every once in a while here, throw some locks at them and put them into temple, see what we get. +2 proj, +2 duration would be so insane on these gloves, so I think would definitely be fun. Obviously, it would make them non-mirrorable, but I don't know how many people would actually play this build anyway, so I don't know if these would be mirror service worthy, but yeah. Alright, I probably would, at some point I probably want to actually upgrade the boots here to be, you can do like triple elevated, you can change that lightning res out for something else. Yeah, those changes you can do, and I probably want to change the enchant on this actually as well, to pen, either pen or cast speed for clear. But yeah, so that's this build. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this again. Don't consider this a build guide or anything, just like a fun showcase, I guess, of a really invested character, just trying to have fun with a couple of cool interactions. Alright, so that was it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.